me just bring this word. So Nipa, are you in the call? Aslam. So you are missing a lot of classes, Nipa. So you from now on, I think you need to be uh, regular, and otherwise, eventually you might get it difficult, this course. Okay, Nipa, you got it? Yeah. So few regarding the homeworks, few of the homeworks I didn't receive from you. Uh, the latest homeworks on these two SQL exam, and then the test plan and few test cases. Those were due. So please work on those so that you can submit those. Okay, all right, sounds good. So I'll be waiting for your email. Now here, I'm going to write a simple test case. Let's say we'll update it later. So I'm going to say positive and negative test case. I'm going to write one positive test case, one negative test case. Yeah, let me share once again. Positive and negative test cases. Let me start sharing. Can you see my screen now, everyone? Okay, so here let's say that if you go to this newtools.demo.aut, right? What first of all you open the application, right? Let me copy this URL. So I'm writing a positive test case on login. Let's say test case number, this is 001 test case name, new tools positive login dependency. So if you want to log into an application, what is the dependency? Login functionality will have to be there. You will have to have a valid credential, right? If you don't have a valid credential, then you cannot log in. So um, you will have to receive a valid credential. Now, first of all, navigate to this URL of this application. And then, as I said, you keep it short and simple. When you log in, what is your expectation? The web page will be loaded. The Mercury Tours logo will be displayed. Right? When you see Mercury Tours logo, I'll just put a straightforward checkpoint here. Website will be loaded with Mercury Tours logo displayed, right? Okay. So this actual result is when you test. When you write the test cases, you do not see the actual result, right? Then this is positive login, right? So here, can you see username? Here you say input a valid username. Your input a valid username. So when you input a username, what will you see here? When you input a username, let's say that user one, username one, right? But what do you see? The user name will be displayed in the username text box. What is your expectation when you input a username? Your expectation is that username will be displayed in the text box. So let me update the step here. The user name will be displayed in the text box, right? And then input a valid password. Now, can you see when you input a password, right? Password, do you see the password or password remain encrypted, right? So you make sure that you check this, you mention this in your test case. Password always in any application, if you work as a tester, whatever application you will be working, if you have a password text box, that text box will have to keep the password encrypted so that um, the password is not displayed in plain text. Okay, password will remain encrypted. Now you click on the sign in button. Click on the sign in button. Now when you click on the sign in button with a valid credential, I'm not sure if this credential is valid, so probably this credential is not valid. Let me go to the home page and give me a second. Let me see if I have a automate code, and then password is L1234 5. Let me see if it works. No. Okay. Code L123456. Enter it. Okay. So let me create a user ID for now. Let's say S star 1 L1, and then email address, let's say Gmail, and then user ID, username, let's say that um, tester 1, and password let's put same thing, P123456 at the rate, and then P123456 at the rate. Submit. Now let me go back to this home page and then uh, tester 1, and then what is my password? P123456. Right. Now let me do a sign in. Now when you, is it still not? So tester 1, and then P123456 at the rate. What is happening? Tester 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so give me 1 second. Let me see. Username, let's say uh, auto tester, auto tester. Is there any spaces here? No. Auto tester, and then let's put password. Just to the word password. PASSWORD password, and then PASSWORD password. Auto tester, submit. Sign in. So auto tester, and the password is password word. Now it seems like this login. Can you try to create a user from your and any of you and give me the user ID and password? Start recording. So what we have written in this, right? So when you supply a valid user ID and password, and if you click on the sign in button, the application homepage should be displayed, and you keep your test case straightforward without too many wordings. Your action should be very precisely defined. Your expectation should be very precisely written here, right? And when you execute, this is in this phase you are writing your test cases, you are not executing. When you do the execution to test, actually testing the application, you might get something whatever your expectation. If you do not get your expectation, you write here whatever expectation you got, and then you mark it as a pass or fail. So the summary here, there are two types of testing: positive testing, negative testing. In positive testing we supply positive data, I mean the valid data, and we test the actual happy path of the application, right? uh, Following the good data, we should see whatever expected, we test it. In negative testing, we test the application with invalid data and see if the application breaks with the invalid data. So here, if you supply a valid user ID and password, right, then the application should be letting you sign in. If you supply invalid user ID password, then the application should not let you sign in, right? So let's say in this particular case, I'm supplying I'm supplying a valid user ID and password here in this home page. Let's say user1, and I'm putting a password here, valid password user1, and I'm trying to log in. When you do actual testing, it is not allowing me to log in. So this step is failing here. So if you since we are writing test cases, we are not going to put actual result, but if we execute the test case, here it will be actual result. The login didn't work. The login didn't work. You mark this test case as fail, and you might want to add another column here. Insert column to the right. You might, let's say, defect. If it fails, you will be reporting a defect to ALM or TFS, whatever platform you guys are using in your organization, and you will be reporting, and you say what is the defect number, right? You say defect, let's say 100, or defect 30. So there you will be opening a defect, and you will be putting the reference of the defect here. Okay, so this number, when you report the defect in the platform, defect reporting platform, it can be TFS, it can be ALM, right? You will get a number from there. If you, if this is the first defect, the number will be 1, but if you already have some defects over there, you will get automatically number defect. Okay, so yeah, yeah, that is correct. Any further question? This is a positive testing where you supply valid credential, and we are calling positive testing. Here we supply valid data, and we make sure that the application is behaving as expected. Now I'm going to write a test case for negative testing. Right, let me just delete. Yeah, you are the one. So in the beginning, right, in the beginning you write the test cases while the developers are developing the application. You finish your part, you write your test cases, And then once the application is ready, the when the application is fully developed, then you execute your test case. Whatever you have written, test cases, those test cases, you go through the list of test cases and you execute them. Is it clear? Yeah. So let's say you have reported a defect, right? This defect is assigned to a developer. The developer will be fixing that defect. And once the defect is fixed, he will reassign the defect to you. You will get a notification in your email that this defect have been fixed. And then you will be going to the defect and you will be checking if the functionality is working. If the functionality is working, then you say, okay, these functionalities are working, so I'm closing the defect. Does it make sense? Yeah, you execute the test case. Other than that, you do not know like if the defect is fixed or not, right? So you have to execute the defect. Let me just remove this hyperlink. Okay. Now, next, the next test case that we are going to do, negative testing. So for now, let's say that I am going to remove this effect and stuff, right? Password failed. Okay, actually, let me keep it. It doesn't matter. Okay. So the next test case that we are going to write is for negative testing. Now here, test case 2, Newton's negative login. Two, and Newton's negative login. Negative login. Product develop for negative testing, right? Test credentials provided. Again, you can they can give you a test credentials, or you can try with any credentials. Let's say ABC, it will not work, right? So you do not have to get a credential from them. Any credential can be, you can try any credential. So I'm removing these dependencies. Okay. Now you navigate to the application. Up to this is good. Let's say that input valid username, right? This here instead of invalid, it will be invalid username. The username will be displayed in the text box. Input a invalid user ID. Password will be displayed, right? And then click on sign in button. Now, when you according to this application, according to this application, when you put an invalid credential, what will happen? Appropriate appropriate error message will be displayed will be displayed, right? And then let me remove this. So if you supply an invalid user ID and password, then appropriate error message will be displayed. Now if you go back to this application here, right, and then if you type in invalid user ID and click on sign in, do you see any appropriate error message? No, right? We do not see any appropriate error message. That means this application is not properly built. Although it didn't allow me to log in, but I did not see a message, hey, you have input an invalid user ID or password. I did not see that, right? So again, you will be able to report a defect for this. So this is what negative testing. You you do testing. You do testing using invalid data in negative testing. Okay. So up to this, are we clear? Positive testing and negative testing. Are you clear like how you will write your test case? You will keep it short and simple. You will not be putting too much wording. You will try to keep it like so that people see and understand it. Okay, are we clear up to this? Okay, so let me go back to few of the theories. So until I'm getting this database uh, database works from you, it will be first of all of you will need to be in the same pace so that I can move further with the database, right? So I'll be sending another homework today, but your old homework, those will have to be sent to me before I go for a new topics. Now, if I go back to my, there are few of the things that I was planning to discuss today, right? Interesting. So if you take a look here, we have previously discussed the agile methodology and waterfall methodology, right? Do you remember agile methodology and waterfall methodology? Everyone, do you remember? So in software development, right, in terms of development process, there are agile development process, there are waterfall software development process. In waterfall method, it is straightforward. We have already discussed that in waterfall, you have your all of the requirement first gathered, and then all of the development done, and then testing happens, the application goes to production. It is a straightforward process. Once the requirements are fixed, you are not going to change the requirement. So everything is written on a stone, and then you move forward with the development. Once the development is done, it goes for the production. Versus in agile methodology, requirement, although requirements you have the requirements have been finalized, but still the requirements can be changed, and then the work happens in sprint. They divide the work in small portion, and then they do the development, and then they go for the next portion, and then they go for the next portion, and then they go for the next portion. So in agile methodology, right, let's say that we have 20 requirements. We have developed a software where the software has how many requirements? We have to develop a software. This software has how many requirements? 20 requirements. In agile methodology, we divide this work into pieces, and then we plan, okay, from this time to this time we will be developing these five requirements, and from this time to this time we will be developing the next five requirements, and from this time to this time we will be developing the next five requirements, and from this time to this time we will be developing the next five requirements, right? Can you see? So now what is happening here? Can you see this time frame here from 5/15/2017 to 6/15/2017? Can you see this time frame here? So we have, like, we are calling this time frame as a sprint, right? Sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4. Sprint can be some of the organization. So in agile methodology, first of all, your understanding point is, in agile methodology we divide the work into sprint, right? We develop a portion of the work in particular sprint, and sprints can be 1 day long, sprints can be 1 month long, and a sprint, normally a sprint is 2 weeks to 6 weeks time frame, depending on the complexity of the work. But sometimes, some organization you will see the sprint is very short, right? Let's say we have planned in this way that in the first sprint we are going to develop first five requirements, and in the next sprint we are going to develop the next five requirements, and in sprint 3 we are going to develop the next five requirements, and in sprint 4 we are going to develop the next five requirements, right? In sprint 1 I have these five requirements, right? So what is happen once the requirements are here, right? The analysis of the requirement happens. Is that correct? Analysis happens, and then design take place, and then development take place, and then verification means testing take place. Let's say after verification you have got three defects. Okay, you got it. So one of the development process that we are one of the development process that sometimes in an organization they follow, we are discussing it. So sprint one, we have five requirements, and when these five requirements, they first start with analyzing the requirements, and then they do the design development, and as a tester we do the verification. Let's say we got three defects. Now sprint two, can you see, sprint one is from 15th of May till 15th of June. Now from 16th of June, we're supposed to be starting sprint 2. And sprint 2, we have again 5 requirements, right? And 3 defects from sprint 1. Is that make sense? Everyone? Do you understand this, what I'm discussing here? In sprint 2, I have 5 requirements from 5 requirements from sprint 2, and we have 3 defects from sprint 1. So in the beginning of sprint 2 we have 5 requirements and 3 defects. These 5 requirements are 5 new requirements. So again, analysis take place, design happens, development happens, testing happens, and then at the end of the sprint, let's say we have 2 defects. In sprint 3, we have 5 requirements from sprint 3 and 2 defects from sprint 2. Same analysis happen, design happen, development happen, verification happens. And after the verification, let's say we have 4 defects after sprint 3. So in sprint 4, we have these 5 requirements for sprint 4 and 4 defects from sprint 3. Now same thing, analysis happen, design happen, development happen, and then verification happens. And then let's say after sprint 4 we have 7 defects. These 7 defects will be fixed and tested so that the software can go to production, right? Before the software goes to production, these 7 defects they will be fixing and they will be testing. Let's say that if there are still defects and no time to fix, the situation will be evaluated in the go no go meeting. Does this figure make sense as a software development methodology, guys? Do you have any question? Guys, do you have any question? Can you come forward with question if you have any? No question? Are you guys following me here? Any questions so far on this? Okay. Now, so I'll be sending you this document so that you can keep it as a record. Now, one of the topics that I'm going to bring here today is RTM. Who can explain what is RTM? Guys, who can explain what is RTM? RTM. Mhm. Requirement traceability matrix. Requirement traceability matrix. So what is requirement traceability matrix is, let's say that as a tester, what do? You write test cases so that you can test the application. Is that correct? You write test cases to make sure that the application is properly tested and and no defect will be there in the application after the application will be going to production, right? So what we do in requirement traceability metrics, right? We associate the test cases with the requirement. Let's say that we have these three test cases here. One is valid homepage UI, validate left navigation menu, home flights, right? Validate center of the homepage. So let's say we have these three test cases. Now, now, if you take a look, we are saying, okay, to in this test case, what requirement we are covering. In test case 2, what requirement we are covering. In test case 3, what requirement we are covering. So in that way, you create a mapping document with your test cases and the requirements. So that is what we are calling requirement traceability matrix. Now, what is the purpose of creating requirement traceability matrix? Can anyone answer that and help me with that? No, it's not a time frame. What is the requirement traceability matrix, right? We are associating the requirements with the test cases. What is the purpose? Can anyone explain that? Why are we associating? Yeah, exactly. So that is the purpose. So remember that your you are writing your test cases to make sure that the application is properly tested, right? But you have to make people understood that you are doing it correctly. So you prepare RTM, you you associate all of your test cases with the requirement, and then you present it to the management. Hey, look, we have written that many test cases, and you can see all of the requirements are covered. To make them have a feeling that all of the requirements are covered, your testing is covering all of the requirements. No place of the application is untested. To give them a feeling like this, right? What you do, you prepare requirement traceability matrix and you present it to the management to make them understood that your testing is fully covering the application. Does it make sense? Do you understand what is the purpose of RTM and what is RTM? Okay, so now if I ask you, hey, can you tell me what is the purpose of using RTM? Why do you prepare RTM? Who can explain it? So by using RTM, we try to make sure that we have 100% coverage of the application. We map the test cases with the requirement in RTM and present it to the management to make sure to fill them that so that they have an understanding that we are covering the application fully, we are testing the application thoroughly. Okay, does it make sense? Okay, I'll be sending you this document. So this is what so now if you take a look, there is another terminology that I'm going to bring here, load balancing. Okay, so by looking at this picture, can you explain like What is your understanding about this load balancing? Hmm. 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 So let's say these are the, when you are trying to use Facebook, right? Let's say this is you, this is me, this is Naved, this is Rajavai, this is yeah, these are the different users, right? Then these are the servers from Facebook. So if all of the users jump into a single server, then that server will not be able to handle the load, right? So what load balancer does, the load balancer keep, yeah, keep the information, okay, in this server how many users are so far, in this server how many users are so far, and then it have logic. If a if a particular server has lower number of users, it will be directing the users to this server. You got it? So in that way, load balancer balances the load of the servers. Hmm? Yeah, stabilizer is for electrical, but load balancer here in computer terms, right? When you have an application that is being used by people around the world or people from different places, load balancer helps even, yeah, balance the load among the application servers so that a single server doesn't get heavy load or less load. Again, load balancer is a server that has the logic to balance the load of an application. Any further question on this, guys? Okay, all right. So then let's come to another terminology that we are going to discuss, test scenario. So now, what is test scenario? So this is a good question for interview. The test scenario gives the idea of what we have to test. Test scenario is like high level test case, right? So test scenario, from a test scenario, you might have, let's say that if we go back to this application, right? This login could be a test scenario. Now from this login, how many test cases you can write? You can write a at least you can write a positive login, you can write a negative login. So you can call, okay, tests, login is a test scenario, and from a test scenario you can write multiple test cases. Is that correct? Let's say from this application, this area, top navigation bar, is a test scenario, and from this top navigation bar you can write multiple test cases. Is that correct? So you can write one test cases for sign off, right? You can write one test cases or multiple test cases from register menu. You can write one or more test cases from for support menu. You can write one or more test cases for contact menu, right? So the this area is a test scenario. Does it make sense? So test scenario is a bigger picture of test cases. From one test scenario, you can write multiple test cases. Do you understand this? So yeah, test test scenario is the bigger picture of the test cases, right? It is the application portion from where we are writing test cases, right? From one test scenario, we can write multiple test cases. Okay. So that is what test scenario is. And then, so what is, now you should have a clear understanding what is test case, right? What is RTM, right? What is load balancing? What is test scenario, right? Is that correct? Okay, I'll be sending you this document. Let me go to few other documents, those I wanted to cover today. Test case. Testing types we have already discussed. My test case will be join. We have to discuss this. So, okay, so now regarding your work for the next week, right? So do you have a clear idea like what you will have to do for next class? Writing the test case. So what was what did I ask you to write test case on in this requirement? In this, yeah, in this requirement document, I ask you to write. Let's say this week your target is to write five separate test cases. Five separate test cases from what requirement? This is the requirement. 2.2. I'm going there. This is the requirement. You write five test cases from requirement one. That's it. To this. Is it clear? You write five test cases. The test cases might be smaller, might be bigger, but you write five test cases from this requirement. Okay, then we have discussed so five test cases, and then you write your test plan. Five test cases, test plan. Make sure you are submitting it to me, and then the SQL homeworks. Do it correctly and send it to me. Are we good, guys? Anyone explain like what is the expectation from you this week? So we're writing test plan and test cases based on this requirement. Mm-hmm. And doing that uh, it is in the email. So finish this database quizzes, and then um, I think you have a sufficient number of work to do in terms of writing test cases, writing test plan, and finishing the database homeworks. So finish it as soon as possible. If I see most of the people send it earlier, I might be sending a couple of more homework, but definitely before the next class, right? My expectation will be at least I will receive all of this homework so that I can move forward with the new topics. Are we clear? Okay. So I will summarize this session here today. If you do not have any question, feel free to give me a call if you have any question. Other than that, I'm going to summarize this session here today. Right, guys. You too. Thank you. Bye.